Sometimes a voice inside you rises saying, just do it, never mind, once won't hurt, but you don't know. That voice might be the first step that takes you away from yourself. Maybe that's exactly where the deception begins. The being you call the devil doesn't have to be something terrifying with horns. Sometimes it becomes the sweetest voice. Sometimes it hides within your righteousness. It never presents evil to you as evil. It says you are right, but leads you to break hearts. It tells you that you are strong, but tests you with arrogance. Most often, it disguises itself as goodness. And the strange thing is, most of the time, you can't recognize it because it deceives you with yourself. It deceives you with your ambition, your fear, your longing. Because if you don't know yourself, you can't see the source of that whisper, and you fall into its trap without realizing it because it knows very well. A person is most vulnerable to themselves. So what does the devil use to deceive a person? And most importantly, what are we so eager to deceive ourselves with? Let's talk about these today. Have you ever found yourself thinking like this? Why did I do this? You know, a voice inside says, don't do it. But another voice is more dominant. The one that says, never mind, nothing will happen just this once. That voice sometimes can be one of the devil's sweetest voices. The being you call the devil is not always a horned, terrifying figure. It is much more insidious, in a much more familiar place. It waits at the edge of the heart, right next to the mind. And do you know? It mostly appears to us in the guise of goodness. Yes, in the guise of goodness, because the devil does not present evil as evil. It brings deception mostly with a sense of righteousness. For example, you are standing up for your rights, but that little voice inside you while you are seeking justice might suddenly encourage you to violate someone else's rights. Then it says, but they did it to you too. What were you supposed to do? Always back down. That's where you get deceived. In fact, the devil deceives you with what is already within you, with your ego, that insatiable side of you, that never satisfied part, with your ambition, your pride, your jealousy, your fears, your anger, your arrogance. But it doesn't show these directly. It covers them with a guise, always finds an excuse. For example, it says you deserve better, when in reality what you desired may have been nothing more than a trick of the ego, but you think it's a right. For example, someone in your life might have said something hurtful to you. Your heart might have hurt, and such anger arises within you. And then a voice rises. Do the same to them. Give back what they did to you. That's where the devil nudges you. Because it knows that when your heart is broken, your mind gets confused. Not only when the heart is broken, but also when it swells with pride. It nudges you. You know, when you achieve success, when people applaud you, it tells you, you are not like anyone else. This success belongs to you. And the seed of arrogance takes you away from yourself. They say that the devil's greatest deception is making you think you are something that is exaggerating your existence, importance, and actions. However, knowing who we truly are is our greatest shield. They say, he who knows himself knows his Lord. Because as a person recognizes their own weaknesses, they also realize whose game they might fall into. I sometimes think that the devil's job is actually very easy, because the groundwork for him is prepared by the voids within us. For example, the need to be valued. Isn't it in everyone? But this need drives you to such points that just for someone to like you, you turn into someone you are not. You do things contrary to your spirit, your essence. And it even passes this off to you as a search for love. However, it makes you forget your own essence. There's another thing. The devil deceives you not only with evil, but also with good. For example, you think you're doing charity, but deep down you have an expectation of benefit. Or you magnify the good you do so much in your eyes that you start to belittle everyone else. Yeah, you expect the person you help to bow to you, to love you, or to obey you. So once the end, even your good deed turns into arrogance. Everyone knows this story. After all, the devil was among those who prostrated to God. He was even at a level where he taught the angels in terms of knowledge. But when the command to prostrate to Adam came, he said, I am superior to him. That's where pride caught him. This story reminds us of this. The path to the devil begins with pride. It starts with you saying, I know better. And that's why Rumi says, when you said I, the doors closed. Because where we say I, there is no we or he. The divine withdraws. Sometimes even when making a tiny decision, you experience an internal struggle. A voice nudges you, saying, do this too, it will give you an advantage. But your heart says something else. In those moments, it's important to hear the inner voice and not suppress the voice of the heart, because the voice of the devil is loud. The voice of the heart, however, comes like a deep whisper. But it is true, real, and fair. Even as children, we actually notice these whispers. For example, imagine a small child. His mother has said not to do it, but he still does it with an inner impulse, because there is a desire within him to try, to see, to test his limits. But when this desire evolves into not recognizing boundaries over time, the devil can easily guide it. That's why, as long as a person doesn't understand their own ego, they are susceptible to being deceived at any age. After all, the ego is like an untrained child. It needs to be trained, cleansed, and purified. There are many examples of this in life. For instance, someone comes to you and gossips. They say, I'm telling you for your own good, I'm warning you. But actually, both that bad energy has affected you and it has clouded your mind. Of course, you can't think at that moment. When I hear this, what will I do? How will this information change anything for me? You just listen.
Thus, the devil has already done his job. He has sown temptation in your heart.
Satan always makes you feel like you're right. But with this sense of being right, he also makes you break hearts. Then you might be too late to mend that heart. Sometimes it deceives you with inadequacy. It says you can't do it. You're incomplete, insufficient. He corners you with this. However, your essence is created perfectly, magnificently. As it says in the Quran, we created man in the best form. But as you believe these lies, you forget yourself, your capabilities, your potential, and you lose your self-confidence. The greatest enemy of the devil is actually your awareness. As you become aware of things, he remains in the shadows because you start to shine your inner light. But if you live in heedlessness, it draws even thicker curtains before your eyes. Therefore, seeing what you look at, reasoning, contemplation, understanding, awareness, these are not only to get closer to Allah, but also a shield to distance from the whispers of Satan. As a result, the devil deceives you with your weaknesses, sense of righteousness, arrogance, fears, expectations, and sometimes with false kindness. Therefore, the greatest battle is not outside but within. According to a guidance Prophet Muhammad said while returning from a military expedition. We are returning from the lesser jihad to the greater jihad. They ask what the greater jihad is. It is the jihad a person wages against their own self, he says. This is not just a battle of faith, it is a battle of consciousness. Unless a person turns to their heart, to their essence, they cannot prevail in this battle. But as they turn to their heart and get to know their soul, the shouts of the devil pass by like a breeze, having no effect. Then let me tell another story. One day, some of the companions came to the Prophet in an embarrassed state because of the bad thoughts and doubts passing through their minds. Finally, one of them mustered the courage and said, "O Messenger of God, sometimes such bad things come to our minds that we are ashamed to speak of them, but they also disturb our hearts." Upon this, the Prophet comforts them and says, "This is the essence of faith, because such whispers are not from the heart but from Satan. The heart is actually fighting because it does not want them."
Another day, a companion comes and asks, "O Messenger of Allah, is it true that every person has a devil with them?" The Prophet replies, "Yes, every person has a devil with them." The companion asks again, "Even you?" Muhammad gives this answer, "Yes, I have one too. I have a devil too, but I have brought him into surrender. With God's help, I subdued him."
This statement, of course, carries a metaphorical meaning. It is not possible for Satan to become a Muslim by nature. But what is being described here is the ability to control and tame the ego and whispers. In short, how can our ego capture us? Through our fears, worries, and anxieties. We fear taking risks and stepping out of our comfort zone. However, change and growth are always possible by stepping out of comforts. We miss the moment due to worries about the future and regrets of the past. Our fleeting temporary pleasures hit us the hardest. It offers superficial delights and distracting toys. By offering these, it further enlarges that void inside, waiting to be filled, searching for meaning. It exposes you to negative news and energy vampires. It makes you lazy and drains your hope. It makes you think there is only evil in the world. By portraying everything as bad, it extinguishes the light of the bright side. It encourages the dark side to become even worse because it normalizes bad events. It makes it seem like there's only injustice and luck. Some people are always lucky and you're unlucky. There's favoritism anyway. What's the point of effort, it says. Yet every person is tested with their own trials. We cannot know what someone is experiencing or what they are dealing with. We only see the outside. It portrays the world not as a place of learning, but as a hell filled with evils, as if everything that happens to us will always go the way we want. When difficulties and calamities occur, the ego immediately intervenes. What kind of world is this? How can you believe with so much evil? What is the use of this effort, this belief, with so much difficulty and bad luck? Yet, this is just a school. And in every class of this school, there are different lessons. One learns loss, another patience, another forgiveness, another joy, another humility. It makes us forget who we are, our strengths, our potentials, our purpose. It trivializes your ego. It starts with, who are you? Be strong, be rich, be successful in this world. That's enough. However, every person has the potential to be a representative of the Creator. Each of us is a bearer of a secret, a trust. We possess a divine power far superior to worldly intellect. As we forget who we truly are, we fall into heedlessness, a deep sleep. This sleep is the state that the devil loves most. Prevents us from turning inward, constantly creates an occupation for us in the outside world. Things are always happening. Look, the agenda is changing, people are fighting, news is being distorted. But somehow it's always bad news. It shifts our focus away from ourselves, our center, our inner balance, and makes us deal with others. Because those who look outside forget themselves, while those who turn inward focus on their own development. Because when a person listens to their inner self, they start asking the real questions. Who am I? Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where am I going? fills the emptiness inside us with bad habits and addictions. However, that emptiness inside us stems from our hunger for spirituality and truth. The soul is only satisfied with truth, meaning, and divine connection. But it offers you other things in an easy and quick way. Addictions like empty relationships, substances, food, series, anything that will numb your brain and take away your ability to think. One of the tricks of the ego is to make us forget how valuable each moment is for our development, how precious the time we spend in this life is. You can do it tomorrow. It's still early. Don't rush. You're still young. Have some fun. But no one has a guarantee for the next moment. Each passing moment goes irreversibly. Sufism says this moment is the moment. In other words, what you have done right now is what truly is. The rest is only a wish. This is why the greatest jihad is the struggle of a person with their own self. External enemies are obvious, but the internal enemy is very cunning, and defeating it requires a constant state of awareness, prayer, worship, and introspection. One who knows their own self can distinguish what is from within and what is a whisper. They find their path back to themselves and their direction. And every direction ultimately leads to God.
With love and understanding.